Welcome everybody for the Brand Exchange podcast. My name is Yohji. I'm super thrilled to have my guest this week here, and it's Mr. Tryke. He's his co-founder and CEO of Tier 1 Entertainment, a number one startup voted by LinkedIn 2022, and one of the Asia's top talent, media, gaming, entertainment company. And Tryke, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you. Like, it's been a while since we've last talked.
Yeah, man, for sure. You're not our typical CEO, right? I think you're a gamer yourself. You definitely approach things your own way, and I think that's something your team, your tribe, your fans, your customers love about your leadership skill. We want to talk about all of it, but before we jump ahead, maybe give us and the listeners today a quick intro. What's Tier 1 Entertainment?
Yeah, so basically, Tier 1 Entertainment is a company that was founded by myself, Alode Gosheng Fiao, and Brian Lim. So together, we thought of revolutionizing the esports and gaming industry by opening up opportunities for gamers like us. Because back in 2017, when we co-founded the company together, like there weren't a lot of opportunities in the space when it comes to like gaming. Like gamers didn't even have a chance to do it full time. Like that was kind of like the situation before, and you wanted it to change. We started it with a talent management space where we manage multiple talents, and then eventually we introduced media properties and our own esports team, and then now we're venturing into Web3, and we even have retail. So we're also now present in 5 countries. So in a way, you can look at us as a Hype Entertainment, YG Entertainment, or like any entertainment companies of Korea applied to gaming and esports in a way. So we're building our own BTS, we're building our own Blackpink, but in gaming and in esports.
I love it. Very ambitious. So you founded 2017, right? 2017?
Yes.
Did you and your co-founders, Alodia and Brian, did you guys meet them and like you were set to do this together, or was it more of an accident? How did it start?
I think it was more of just a natural progression of our careers where we were in the same space. We used to work together in an event. We got to work together in an event, and we realized that there was something that we can do together that no other group can create and even are thinking of doing. Just because I remember like during that time, people were really talking about Tier 1 in such a way that why are you putting up a talent management in a space that has no opportunities? Right? Like, what's the point of managing talents if there aren't any opportunities in the space,
Yeah.
So, I mean, on the other hand, like, our thinking was that that's why you need an institution for them to be able to have certain opportunities, right? And
Right.
I think since then, like, the company has really evolved from what it is today.
Talent management was the first service that you offered?
Yes.
Okay. And then after that, what was the second thing that kind of fused into the company?
We introduced media properties, so technically
Okay.
shows around our talents, and then eventually our esports team. So those are the 2 IPs we created after the talent management side, and now we're getting into retail and Web3 as well. But we're also replicating our success to other markets such as Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Myanmar.
Yeah, I saw Myanmar. Is that still doing okay right now? I mean, I know the country
Obviously, with
calmed
what
down a
happened
bit.
with Myanmar, it's very unfortunate, but we still believe in the market. We feel like there's a lot of gamers in the market, and for us, it's not always a pure monetization play. It's more of just having a share of voice, like a collective share of voice that will talk about gaming and esports and how it is changing life.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I have so many talents there that hopefully find a better way or find a better solution to the current country situation. But we worked with many partners there before. Definitely a big support of those guys. I wanted to talk about a bit about digital marketing because that's one of the services that you're offering, right? Digital
Yes.
marketing management. So does it include design and creation, creativity, everything, or just management?
No, we mostly produced most of our campaigns as well. So
Okay.
basically, for myself, I worked for marketing for a laptop before. My background is also organizational communication. So basically, that is in a way an intersection of organizational structure, design, and multimedia, right? So
Okay.
like coming from that background, at least I learned how to manage creative people. And basically, like production and creating content around gaming is also what we do. So generally, I feel like there's a lot of really like great stories you want to tell. There are a lot of like creative things that you can do. but I think what it lacks is the element of a certain persona that comes with a certain creator, right? Because for whatever story that you're saying, if there is a voice, if there is a persona that kind of like represents that story, that it becomes so much stronger, right? Like for
Right.
instance, we've worked with Maya, for example, with Kong, where Kong really was pushing for, the Maya the product, and I think it will resonate differently compared to any other campaign because of that persona. Because some people don't kind of like see that whenever you get to have an influencer, like people always, especially people in marketing, are always looking at it as at a content level, right? At a content level, at a distribution level, in a way, on a macro level, they see it as an amplification. But I beg to differ. I mean, for me, one, it's an amplification strategy, yes. But on the other hand, it's also a very credibility, community, historical type of driven approach where, if you latch on your brand into a certain creator, all the history, all the credibility, all the community that comes with that creator is already affiliated to you, or is already like something you can tap, right? And I don't think building a brand as a creator is easy. I think to be able to really build a brand for yourself, that requires a lot of storytelling, that requires a lot of history. And I think being able to buy into that as a brand is something that's very powerful as long as it's done organically.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think building brands for, especially for your industry, it seems sometimes a little bit easier, but I think it's the same hard level that we're all playing, right? Because I think gamers or that entire industry, I think the strengths that you guys have is that your community is quite passionate about what you
Yes.
do, right? But even then, challenging that and trying to stand out because there are what hundreds of thousands, 10 thousands of games out there nowadays, right? And communities and everything that comes with it, that you have to still find your unique voice, persona, and fit that you have to represent and be real about, right? I think that's very interesting. Thank you for your insight from and your point of view. I want to talk a little bit about naming because we sometimes do offer those services and like naming workshops, like finding the right name. I absolutely love yours, and I just want to talk a bit. I want to ask you, like, how did you guys come up with that name?
So for Tier 1 Entertainment, basically, like, this was something that I kept in one of my, like old files before. Because initially, I thought of putting up an agency for esports only. Like,
Okay.
I even have like the old logo back in 2013. But, like obviously esports as a sector is not enough for an agency per se. So I kind of like parked that and banked that, right? So when we thought of like recreating a company that's now a talent management, and when we were thinking about it, right? Like first we used the word tier 1 because it is present across multiple games, right? You have tier 1 towers, you have tier 1 caliber,
Yes.
items, you have multiple, like the tier 1 as a term is something that's already embedded in a lot of games, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's gaming, but it's not gaming. And I think that's what we're about, right? Like, yes, we're
Yeah.
authentic gamers, but we're presenting ourselves as regular people, as like a magazine or like something that's more mainstream because we want it to be palatable, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one aspect. And then actually we raised that whole tier 1, at first it was tier 1 esports agency, eventually it was tier 1 agency or whatever, and like that, right? But Aika Rojas, who is still with us today, actually thought of the idea of putting entertainment, just because, hey, if we're patterning our company to the entertainment companies of Korea, then why not put entertainment? Because there
Right.
it's YG, it's Hype, it makes sense, right? So then it clicked and we're like, yeah, let's do it. Tier 1 Entertainment, that's the name.
Okay, yeah. It's so freaking perfect, man. I love it. Yeah, I think what you said about gaming but not too gaming to like just fit in everything. Like it's just one of those rare situations where you like read the company name and then like you see like one thing and I was like, yeah, you don't have to send me anything anymore. I got what you guys doing, right? It's so great, and that's really the really powerful part of naming, right? And
Yeah.
I think in a passionate industry, it works even better.
Yeah,
Did
I think just to add to that, right? Like even for our team, Blacklist International, it's also
Okay.
like a very, very like different kind of like name, especially in esports, because usually esports teams use pro team, or esports like that, like Boom Esports, TNC Pro Team, like those are usually the terms that go after a certain, like
Okay.
team name. But also for us, we thought of like the term international, so that in a way it doesn't sound pure esports, but it is a brand that's more of like a lifestyle brand, and we just use the term blacklist because sometimes when you're so good at the game, you get blacklisted by your friends, and then you like your other competitors like, hey, now he can't play, you know what I mean? So like we wanted to be that good to a point where like
Okay.
people just want to blacklist the team. So that's, I mean, all of these naming things, like we're very very deep about it. Like some people think that we're just putting it out there, like we have Amplify, we have Ascend, we have Ardent,
Hmm.
and Blacklist. Like all of these like names, it goes through like a very long and rigorous process. And what we do in tier 1 that I can share is that we have a word bank.
Hmm.
So whenever, even before we think of a new move, or like a certain movement, right? We already think of like words that we might be able to use in the future that's attached to the brand.
Yeah, absolutely lovely. Yeah, we also use word banks in our process, and when if anyone is listening here today who's like in the states of building their own company or something like that, or new project, like word banks are basically associated words to what your customer is using, or what your anything to do with your industry, with your product, with your service. Just like try to think of in Tryke's case, like the games that people use, what I already said tiered what levels they can achieve and stuff like that, and like just find synonyms for it, find other words, and then just create word banks for every single kind of section for it, and then you come up with like insanely nice names like T1.
Thank
Um,
you.
so obviously this is a branding podcast, so I do have this one question that never changes from guest to guest, and I will ask you as well, and that is Trike, what is branding and what is branding for you?
Um, I think branding for me is consistency and identity. I think that's what branding is for me. First, on the identity side, right? Like the brand needs to be able to understand what it represent, what does it represent, what is its identity, right? Like when we created Tier 1 from the get-go, we wanted it black and white, we wanted it polished, we wanted it to be glossy, we wanted it to really look like it's an elite brand, you know?
Hmm.
Like we were really looking at, like the likes of Balenciaga, the likes of Off-White, like all
Okay.
of these things, because we felt like gaming needed that look, because every time, like people were looking at gaming before, like people were looking down at gaming, right? So
Right.
we needed it to visually look like it's posh, it's classy, it's up there, one, but at the same time, it needs to be something that you can still reach. You know
Hmm.
the feeling of like it's reachable, it's attainable, but it's hard to get there. Like that's in a way how we kind of like identified the tier 1 brand. That's one. Second, it's black and white, because we feel like we're very like black and white people in terms of like what we do. Yeah, we're very black and white, and we feel like the black and white color really resonates to a lot of gamers as well, because it's a revolution. It's like creating a revolution that is something that people have always looked for in gaming, where we all wanted to be recognized. You wanted this sport to be recognized. You wanted to
Right.
for this industry to get recognized, right? And I think so that, and then I think in terms of consistency, right? Like some brands develop, and evolution of branding always happens, right? But I think you need to be very consistent with your storytelling, right? Like for every step of the way, for every country that we go to, we make sure that this is tier 1 standards, right? This is our values. This is our identity.
Mhm.
Like no gradients, like noise, all of these like elements, even on a design level, are
Right.
very consistent, so that people will get to like absorb it on a day to day. Because I feel like that's sorry to kind of like talk more about it, but
Yeah, I
first
love
I think
everything
it's
about
very
it.
important to know your identity, because if you
Yes.
have your own identity, that it will resonate to people clearly, one, and second, consistency will get the brand into their head on an everyday level, to a point that this is what tier 1 is. This is what tier
Mhm.
1 is about. Like every time you're saying that on like for the past 5 years, like we've been very consistent for the past 5 years, right? Like
Right.
then it clicks to people that this is what tier 1 is about. So I feel like it's really identity and consistency.
Yeah, 100%. I can only agree with you on that. I think consistency is the hardest part of it. Building the identity part is much easier. And I think like doubling down on that topic, right? I think most of the people that we talk to, even sometimes companies with, lots of investments and money to back up, I think they only see, or not only, but they mostly see branding as something very visual, right? I think most people connect branding with design, sometimes even just logos. What was you guys' approach in terms of like the verbal consistency? Like, did you guys come together, really put everything on black and white, say like, this is our persona, this is how we talk
Yes.
to, we are this, we are the cool Balenciaga gamer to make things posh from now. Like, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
I'm very fortunate to have worked with one of the greatest storytellers I've met in my life, Marco. So
Okay.
Marco De Leones has been with us. He was so his dream was to be able to write a story that people will resonate to, right? He was more of like a literature type of person, and I felt like, like if you can write our story to the rest of the world, then why not, right? And I think it's a very, very brilliant mind. And he like the words, like break the code of blacklist, like that catchphrase, the be truly top tier, like tagline came from him. And
Okay,
I will
awesome.
give most of the credit really to him because first, he has been consistent. Second, he understood how to put your stakeholder and your positioning, like in place in terms of the landscape where okay, they are this, but we are this, right? So if you've seen Tier 1 for the past 5 years, it's been consistent not just because of myself, but also because of, like the people behind the team who have stayed with us
Right.
throughout the brand and the storytelling of the brand, right? So I think that's a very, very important aspect. So I guess to answer your question, right? Like I think the most important thing about that part in terms of branding is understanding what's your persona means. Who are you and who are you not? Because
Mm.
sometimes the pitfall for any like storytellers or like brand people is that you always want to collaborate to a certain good brand or to a certain good community or to
Right.
a certain good design, even though if it doesn't matches your identity just because it's a trend or maybe because it's cool or maybe because everybody else is doing it, right? But
Yeah,
I
trends
think
are
identity
dangerous.
yeah but I think identity in its full sense, persona in its full sense, shouldn't be moved by the current, right? So I think it will evolve. It should evolve, but it should evolve internally in its identity rather than getting moved around by the currents of the trends.
It's like when you're looking for a girlfriend, right? Like, of course, like
What a
when you,
comparison.
yeah, because look, if you're looking for a partner, right? Like, of course, at a certain time you want to make adjustment to that other person, but you don't want to start from that at zero, right? You don't want to be switch yourself completely around just so the other person likes you. You are first yourself, and then like after a certain time you can start like listening to your customers or to your partners or whatever to kind of like fuse that all into to whatever your personality will become after. But I think like really figuring out who the heck you are, right? As a person, as a brand, as a persona, all these kinds of things. I think, yeah, I absolutely agree.
And I think for tier one, it's aspirational. It's really, like inspiring people to dream. It is a destination and it wants to
Mm.
revolutionize the whole gaming space. And we've never really like moved away from that. We've been consistent about
Except that you're wearing a white T-shirt today. What's
that.
wrong with you, man? I
Yeah,
I, I
not
made
now, not
everything
now.
black for you, and you come to me with a white T-shirt. No,
This is the one of the rare times, man. One of the rare times.
our podcast will not be visually consistent. No, I'm just kidding. All good. One more thing that like recently, I mean, I'm following you on LinkedIn pretty much every day, and like checking also the other things that are going on. And I think one of the things that you guys really mastered, and I think that any brand needs to do, is that you became much more than your services, right? And I think that's where a company becomes a brand, is that when you exceed the original offering of your services or your product. So like tier one almost becoming or is in the progress of becoming a fashion brand or like a lifestyle brand, right? I think that's so awesome that people can just like have so many more channels to connect with you on a such more personal level. Like how's the fashion sorry, or lifestyle brand scene going? Like I know that you guys have some merch and other stuff that people can, support you guys with, but
So for me personally, right, like obviously, Tier 1 has always been talking about, like join our journey to be able to, like revolutionize gaming and esports. But at some point, in terms of like providing opportunities to people to in a way believe in our brand, will always fall under, are you a talent or are you an esports player or do you want to work with us, right? But ever since we've been looking at the community and how much they believe in us and how much they've been inspired, we felt like we needed to create a product that will become, in a way, an access point for all of these communities to have a certain tangible piece of Tier 1. Because, like, maybe it's not happening outside of gaming, but in gaming, at least for some communities, right, or for some people, like Tier 1 to them is a company that created a dream that I can dream of now, which didn't exist before, right? So like them being able to see these physical items is a living proof that, like you can dream to be a gamer full time because of this company, right? So in a way, I think that is, like I said, a tangible piece of that in the proof of that, and we like it because, like, I remember before where gamers were like, we couldn't say it out loud that we're gamers, right? Because it wasn't cool. We won't be invited to parties. There will be friends who will tell us you're weird and such and like that, right? But for us, like, we embrace weirdness like that. So like now people are wearing the Tier 1, like stuff and the Blacklist brand like loud and proud because they all feel that we've empowered them as a collective, and like wearing that piece makes them part of that collective that is proud, that is, like about this revolution of gaming now in 2022, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I don't see you guys going anywhere because I think, even if someone will start beating you on the prices that you're offering or, the talents or whatever, like you already build such a strong tribe that like people will stick with you, right? And I think that's how success is truly ensured by strong branding and brand investments. Because I mean, I know you and me are different people, but I'm not ever going to enter a Samsung store, right? I don't care if they're gonna sell me the newest, most strongest phone for $1. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm gonna go and get myself an iPhone, right? So
Yeah.
the same difference. So I think your market position plus your tribe, man, I only see good things for you in the future.
Thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, I think being able to create real connection with your community is very important, right? And I think
Yeah.
what people are really missing out right now is how branding and marketing works today is not a top to bottom funnel purely. It's also a bottom to top funnel. It's a circulatory funnel, like whatever funnel it is. Like, there's no funnel. Like, it needs to be a web network.
Right.
And it needs to be in this web network's veins to, like pump the blood of your brand and make it just continuously flow within the ecosystem. Because
Yeah.
we're not in the age of TV where like you pump a message at the top, everybody consumes, everybody digests, nobody questions, and they just buy the idea.
Right.
Like the internet has provided people with the right to question and the right to actually choose what they want, right?
Yeah.
So being able to identify yourself from all of the noise that's being promoted in the internet is an art people have to master in branding, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this already in the last podcast. Maybe I'm starting to bore some of our listeners, but I wanted to share that with you because I read that recently and it fascinated me that advertising used to be the storytelling of brands, right? And since brands have to be real now because of social media, as you just said, branding replaced advertising in a way because
Yes.
now brands have to be real. I don't know. That it sums up what you just said. I thought, maybe
Agree.
you like that summary as well. I introduced you as an amazing leader, as amazing new fresh CEO in the industry. Let's talk about that a little bit. And I mean, the maximum amount of people I managed was around 30, and I was already so stressed out. I don't want to do that again. We want to keep it small and crispy, but from your experience, I mean, you guys grew from like 20 to 200 plus in like what, 2 years, something like
5 years,
that?
5 years.
5 years, okay. What's the
But the jump
what?
was
Yeah.
the jump was really during the pandemic. I think when we entered the pandemic, it was 56, and now we're
Okay.
200 plus. So
Whoa, you guys are set up to be run hybridly or completely digitally?
hybridly.
Okay. So what's for you the biggest difference between let's say 20 and 200?
It's something that I'm also facing right now as a challenge, to be honest, because when you're starting out as a startup, right, where there's like 8 or 25 of you, like your currency in terms of success was people who were holistic, people who can wear multiple hats, and people who can juggle multiple things at the same time, right? But when you get to like 50, then maybe that can still work, but you need to add more people like that, right? But when you get to like 100 to like 200, like things need to be institutionalized because people wearing multiple hats and then people doing like things left and right, that's not helpful for you anymore, right? You need to be able to create a certain structure that will allow dedicated, like areas for dedicated things that they need to do. And I think that's the most challenging part because obviously, like, if you've kept most of your team, which we did, like they were wearing multiple hats before and now they need to do just one role. But that one role is also like a huge role,
Right.
So first, it's removing that habit. Second, it's creating a proper structure. And then number three, it's really finding a strong HR leader and team that will really drive the culture forward so that the culture will stay intact, but the processes and the implementation should be airtight. So that I'm still struggling with right now because that will boil down to leadership. And the question about leadership then becomes, do you promote internally or do you train internally or do you hire from outside, right? Obviously, like if you're at 50 or 70, it's the most political right thing to say that, hey, I'll promote internally. We're not that type of company. But if you get to like 100 or 200 and you're growing super fast, right? Like at a point, you need to be able to like acquire other people from outside. So, like all of these things are running in any CEO's head for sure, and there's no one right answer. But I think you need to be always talking about people, process, product. And I think that's the most important thing. Because
Yeah.
people will create the process and the process will create the products.
Yeah, and even the brand starts internally, right? If your people don't vibe the brand, then there's no way externally anyone will vibe it. So yeah, absolutely. I have no idea how to manage 200 people. I'm very impressed. Respect to you. Do you have a source where you get a lot of your leadership confidence and powers that you would like to share with us and the listeners? Do you have any good reads or?
So I think in terms of leadership skills, I follow Gary V, for instance, in terms of like how he communicates from a B2C perspective. On the other hand, I also follow Steve Jobs in terms of his presentation skills and his communication skills on how to really share his product to the market. And then third, like understanding multiple government and empires that existed before.
Right.
Because I feel like at the very basic unit of society is family, but at the same time, at the very basic unit of an institution is a government, right?
Right.
I mean, we don't have perfect governments around the world, but there are in a way really great governments like that of Dubai and that of Singapore, which is nice to learn from because imagine if you can understand what a prime minister of a country that manages multiple millions of people is thinking, then that can in a way be applied to running a company. So two of my favorite books are two. So one is The Chic CEO because he really shares his leadership there, which I think a lot of CEOs can learn from. And second is a book called Why Nations Fail. I feel like
Okay.
as a leader, you need to be able to understand what failure is first before understanding what success is, right?
Yeah.
And sorry to spoil you, but why nations succeed is because it allows for creative destruction. And to me, like at the end of the day, leadership is allowing creative destruction. And what creative destruction means is that if a certain innovation is coming, for example, Grab, then it disrupts the whole of the taxi industry. You know what I mean? Like any innovation will put a destruction towards a certain line. So I feel like as a CEO, as a leader, there will always be new ideas that will, in a way, put some old ideas aside. There will be some new people that might put old people aside, a new lens that will put in, like old lens aside. And I think you just need to be able to create a certain platform that allows that because Nokia at one point was number one and then where they are now, right? Like, so what I'm saying is that as long as you allow for creative distractions to happen in your company, I think that's the right leadership, at least in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I mean, of course, yeah, you have to be adaptable as the leader, otherwise no one will adapt for you, right? You're the captain, so if you don't adapt, no one will. Um, yeah, I mean, Grab is a interesting example, and I think if just to throw one out there is like bank tellers, especially like in Germany, in the States, like 70 years ago, when there were rumors that the banks invented something called ATM. All the bank tellers went crazy. They said, "Oh my God, I'm gonna lose my job. Like this is it for us. Like we're all gonna get fired." But of course not, right? Like if you go today to a bank tellers are not anymore there to hand you out the cash from your account. They're there for consulting, I don't know, risk management, some other kind of banking bullshit. I have no idea. But right from the same thinking process, it never goes away. It always changes. And if you as a bank or as a leader or as Tryke, if you adapt, then obviously you will survive whatever trend is going on. So yeah, just wanted to add that to our creative destruction story. But yeah, thanks so much, man. I'm gonna check out the Shake CEO. I never heard about it. I'll definitely give that a read.
It's an amazing book. It really talks about leadership. It's a leadership book, I feel like. Because one last point, right? Like if you look at like corporate strategies and all that, those are all driven by profits. Or sometimes those are all driven by, like investor needs, or where the market is going in terms of where the company should go, But I think leadership is really about leadership. So like identifying leaders who are truly leaders
Right.
is something that I think we should read on as we like go through this journey.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we have to be brave. It's gonna be always the long-term game, right? So let's continue. I'm very happy to check in with you again in 2 years. Let's update each other. Let's keep it like that for the serious branding, leadership, and marketing and otherwise discussion. I have two closing questions for you, and one of them is when we talk about gaming, right? And without going too specific into it, but you, as CEO of Tier 1 Entertainment, what do you think what's coming at us in gaming? Is it going to be the next triple A play to earn crypto game, or what are we heading towards?
There are multiple things that I see, but I think the esports landscape will evolve in such a way that esports was always seen as a marketing play per se for a lot of games. But where it's going right now is it's becoming a sustainable play for games so that they don't need to reinvent a new game, right? Because like looking at all of the gaming studios that have succeeded, right? Like not a lot of them have had multiple successes, right? Like not a lot of them have created like two Dota 2s or like five Mobile Legends or like eight Diablo
GTA.
3 or like whatever game that is. And basically like what I'm saying is creating a game is very hard.
Yeah.
And the power of esports is it keeps the people in the game and it keeps the excitement in the game there, right? And I think where it lacks is the infrastructure behind it, the broadcasting, all of the aspects that come with, sports is something that needs to be applied to esports. So I feel like creating new games, yes, that will always be a thing, but utilizing esports make a game's longevity like last and turn longer is something that will exist. So I feel like there's gonna be more investments towards esports on the games and all the other picks and access companies that are there. One.
Yeah.
Second, I think the future of MMO is
What's that?
really mass multiplayer online game.
Okay.
Sorry, that's MMO. So MMO is like there's a big world online and then you can all play there, like Ragnarok, like World of Warcraft,
Okay, all right.
like those
Gotcha.
games, right? So I feel like the future of those MMORPG games are the metaverse. It's really Web3 because
Okay.
like before when we were all playing online, what's happening is basically I play online, I can maybe earn some like gain some items, I trade it off through fiat. But I think trading it off in the chain or Web3 will really give it a different technological tool. And I feel like that is the future. Like metaverse with interoperability, meaning Metaverse 1, Metaverse 2, Metaverse 3, and you can move into those multiple metaverses like a multiverse in Marvel will happen. So imagine you have a certain metaverse, for example, The Sims, the next metaverse for like Diablo, and then
Right.
like all of the players can interoperate in these worlds, but as they enter into this new world, then they turn into something else, you know.
Oh yeah, let's see where that's going. I wanted to share with you one insight to view esports in a very old school way. The reason I always believed in esports that it has a future was that I'm a huge snooker fan. So you know snooker, it's like billiards but bigger. And me and my friends like watched that for like ages. So that's pretty much just like two guys standing at a table and the same game for like I don't know how many hundreds of years that exists already, just shooting a ball back and forth, right? In a very make in an oversimplified way. And I could spend hours just watching people like fighting each other on snooker or billiard, right? I think like if you just connect it with even insane visuals and all the other parts that, competitive gaming has to offer, I think, yeah, man, I don't think that's gonna go away anytime soon.
I think it's happening now with Mobile Legends, right? Like
Yeah.
and Free Fire. Like as the platform moved from PC to mobile, it has exponentially grew its audience, one. And I think second, right, like it just resonated to more people because the learning curve is actually lower compared to PC games, right? So I mean that has turned into 5 million peak viewership for Free Fire, 3 million peak viewership for Mobile Legends, and consistently we've been getting at least 100,000, like concurrent viewers for our team specifically,
Wow.
right? So I think generally like esports is not going away. Maybe it's not going to be the same games in the future, but the whole concept of esports will always stay.
Trike, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you one last word for our younger viewers who are still starting, who are in their 20s. What advice do you have for our young guns?
For all of you who are starting as entrepreneurs, then you're gonna be in for a very, very challenging ride if you're in your 20s, right? So good luck and don't be afraid to fail. One.
Very good. I like it.
But if you're working for someone else or like if you're studying or like if you're just running your family business or whatnot, right? What I can say is that I got this from someone, I forgot who, but someone told me, which I think I super agree on, is that when you're young, just make sure that you're on the right train. Whether the train is slow or the train is fast, the train will get you to the right destination if it's the right train, right? So I think, like riding on the right train is very important at a young age because that bridge of 20 to 30 will really give you a time of you're allowed to make mistakes. You don't have much responsibilities, you don't have kids, you don't have people that you need to be paying for whatever, right? So maybe this is the time for you to just learn. And learning is important, but learning won't matter if you're in the wrong train. So make sure that you're in the wrong train with the right people leading that train.
All right, you heard it. The CEO of the Philippines' #1 startup, Tier 1 Entertainment, Tryke. Thank you so much for being on the show. See you soon, and thank you for all your insights.
Thank you. Thank you.